The story of Angela's warm bowl of soup on a cold winter day affirms that kindness has the power to heal, bringing together people from different walks of life to form a family. Let us know where you're watching from. Now relax and enjoy this amazing story. Angela stood in the cramped kitchen of her small two-bedroom apartment, wiping her hands on her threadbare apron. The scent of homemade tomato soup filled the air, a rare treat that she had managed to scrape together with a few leftover vegetables. It was one of those meals that stretched just far enough to feed her and her 7-year-old son, David. Angela stirred the pot absently, her mind elsewhere, as David played with his well-loved set of toy cars in the living room. The winter wind howled outside, rattling the single-pane windows that never seemed to fully close. Angela glanced toward the window and saw the faint glow of lights from the house across the street. It was an old Victorian home, its grandeur faded with time and neglect. She had often seen Mrs. Bonnie Lewis, the elderly woman who lived there, shuffling to her mailbox or tending her overgrown garden. Bonnie always seemed alone, her stooped frame and slow steps carrying a sense of quiet isolation. Angela hadn't spoken to Bonnie much, aside from a polite wave or a quick hello, when they happened to cross paths. After dinner, as David tucked into his soup, Angela made up her mind. She would visit Bonnie. She poured some soup into a container, grabbed a loaf of bread she had baked earlier, and bundled up in her coat. "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Stay inside and keep the door locked." She hesitated for a moment, second-guessing herself, before raising her hand to knock. The sound of her knock echoed in the stillness, and for a moment, there was no response. Then she heard the faint shuffle of footsteps. The door creaked open, revealing Bonnie's face. Her silver hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and her sharp blue eyes studied Angela with mild surprise. "Good evening, Mrs. Lewis. I'm Angela from across the street. I made some soup and thought you might like some." Bonnie's expression softened into a faint smile, though her movements were slow as she opened the door wider. "That's kind of you, dear. Come in before you freeze." The inside of Bonnie's home was a stark contrast to the outside. It was tidy but sparsely furnished, the rooms dimly lit with a chill that suggested she rarely used the heat. Angela placed the soup and bread on the small dining table. "I hope you like tomato soup." Bonnie nodded and sat down, her movements careful. "It's been a long time since anyone brought me a home-cooked meal. Thank you." They chatted for a while as Bonnie ate, their conversation starting with polite small talk, but gradually venturing into more personal territory. As the hour grew late, Angela rose to leave. "I should get back to David, but I'd love to stop by again sometime. Maybe you could come over for dinner one night." Bonnie looked surprised, her eyes widening slightly. "Dinner? I wouldn't want to impose." "It wouldn't be an imposition at all, and so would I." For a moment, Bonnie seemed to hesitate, but then she nodded. "That would be lovely, Angela. Thank you." Angela left Bonnie's house feeling happy. The following evening, Angela busied herself in the kitchen again. She wasn't sure why. She felt so determined to follow through on inviting Bonnie for dinner. But something about the elderly woman's quiet loneliness had stayed with her. David, always curious, watched her from the couch. "Is Mrs. Lewis really coming over?" "I think so." David smiled brightly. Not long after, there was a knock at the door. Angela opened it to find Bonnie standing there, her long wool coat draped over her thin frame. She clutched a small tin in her gloved hands. "I brought something for dessert." Angela accepted it with a smile and stepped aside. "Come in. Make yourself comfortable." Bonnie hesitated for just a moment before stepping inside. Her eyes swept over the cozy apartment, lingering on David, who stood shyly behind his mother. "And you must be David. Angela told me all about you." David nodded and said politely, "Hello, Mrs. Lewis." Dinner was a simple affair. Spaghetti with a bit of grated cheese on top, and a salad made from what Angela had on hand. They talked as they ate, with Bonnie sharing snippets of her past. Angela learned that Bonnie had once been a school teacher and loved literature. She spoke of her late husband, with warmth and affection, though there was a trace of sadness in her voice. David, who usually fidgeted through meals, was uncharacteristically quiet, listening intently to Bonnie's stories. Over the next few weeks, Bonnie became a regular presence in Angela's life. They began to share meals a few times a week, alternating between Angela's apartment and Bonnie's house. David grew especially fond of Bonnie, and she seemed equally taken with him. She would bring him small gifts, books from her personal collection, or little trinkets she had kept from her teaching days. Angela noticed that Bonnie seemed to grow more animated with each visit. Her once stooped posture straightened, and her conversations became livelier. She even laughed more, a sound that Angela had never heard from her before. It warmed Angela's heart to see the change, and she realized that Bonnie had become a source of comfort for her too. One Saturday morning, Bonnie arrived at the apartment unannounced, a small, elegant handbag hanging from her arm. Angela opened the door to find Bonnie dressed in her best coat, her scarf neatly tied at her neck. "Mrs. Lewis, what a nice surprise. Come in." Bonnie stepped inside, taking in the familiar, cozy space. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all. David is outside playing in the courtyard with his friends. Would you like some tea?" "Maybe later." She sat down and opened her handbag, withdrawing a small envelope. "Angela, I brought something for you." Angela looked at the envelope, with curiosity and a touch of apprehension. "What is it?" "Open it, dear." Angela opened the envelope with trembling fingers, pulling out a neatly folded check. As her eyes fell on the amount, $10,000, her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't speak, the enormity of the gesture rendering her speechless. "Mrs. Lewis, I can't accept this. This is too much." "Angela, I've thought about this carefully. Please, let me explain." Still holding the check. "But why? Why would you do this for me?" Bonnie reached over, gently taking Angela's hand. "Because you've been more than a neighbor to me. You've been a friend, a true blessing. For years, I lived in that old house feeling forgotten, while the seasons changed around me. When you knocked on my door with soup that night, you didn't just bring me a meal, you brought me back to life. Since then, you and David have filled my days with light I thought I'd never have again." Angela's tears brimmed, but Bonnie wasn't finished. "You've shared so much of yourself with me, Angela. I see how hard you work, how you stretch every penny for David. I know what it means to feel like the world is on your shoulders, even if you try not to show it. When you told me about your struggles, as a single mom raising David on your own, balancing work and worrying about every bill, I saw a strength in you that I deeply admire. But I also saw someone who deserved a helping hand." Angela swallowed hard, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You've already done so much for me just by being here. This is more than I could ever have imagined." The next day, Bonnie stopped by with another surprise, a folder containing information about local teaching programs and scholarships. "I've been looking into this, just in case you decide it's not so impossible after all." Angela's hands trembled as she took the folder, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You've done so much for me already, Bonnie. I don't know how I could ever repay you." Bonnie smiled, her voice warm. "You already have, dear. You've given me something I thought I'd lost, a sense of purpose and a family to share it with. That's worth more than money could ever buy." As summer arrived, with Bonnie's support and her own determination, Angela began taking small but meaningful steps toward her dream of becoming a teacher. She started by researching part-time programs and online courses, piecing together a plan that felt achievable. Over the weeks that followed, Angela threw herself into her studies, balancing her coursework with her job and her responsibilities as a mother. It wasn't easy, and there were nights when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. But Bonnie was always there, offering words of encouragement, a hot meal, or simply a listening ear when Angela needed it most. Her once quiet and solitary life had been replaced with laughter, activity, and a renewed sense of purpose. She and David spent hours together in the garden, where he proudly showed off the sunflowers he had planted with Bonnie's help. On a crisp autumn morning, Angela completed her first official teaching assignment as part of her certification program. She returned home beaming with pride, greeted by David's excited hugs and Bonnie's warm congratulations. "You're one step closer. I knew you could do it." Angela felt tears prick her eyes as she hugged Bonnie tightly. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Bonnie pulled back, her eyes shining. "And I couldn't have found this kind of happiness without you and David. We've made each other whole." As the three of them sat down for dinner that evening, their little family felt complete. Angela glanced at Bonnie and David, her heart swelling with gratitude for the unexpected turn her life had taken. She thought back to that cold winter evening, when she had first knocked on Bonnie's door with a container of soup in her hands. It had been such a small act of kindness, but it had grown into something far greater. And as laughter filled the room, Angela realized that even in the hardest times, kindness, love, and hope could light the way and remind her that family didn't have to be defined by blood, but by the hearts willing to share it. The power of compassion connects hearts that need love in situations where there is nothing but hardship. This simple act of sharing can light up our lives. Are you willing to spend your time helping strangers like Rose and Michael did? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and share it with others. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to hear more inspiring stories. Goodbye, and see you soon.